Hello and welcome to another episode of the Florian Sports Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the Jacksonville Jaguars preview going into the preseason week 2 against the New Orleans Saints. Now this preview is going to be basically talking about their week 1 preseason game against the Cleveland Browns. What are the results of it? What can we take away from it? And also the first round of cuts for this Jacksonville Jaguars team and how Coach Urban Meyers is dealing with his first ever debut in the NFL. And of course, there was more than just Urban's debut in the NFL. We also had Trevor Lawrence the first time in a Jacksonville Jaguars teal. That's right, Trevor Lawrence made his debut for the Jacksonville Jaguars in this preseason game. Starting off, there was some, conversation about who was going to start. Coach Urban didn't really say anything to the media till the day of the snap. Uh, Trevor Lawrence had a somewhat of a good day in the sense of, he had 2 drives going on. We're talking about a kid that went 6-9 overall in pass attempts, 71 yards and 2 drives. Unfortunately, he was a little bit uncomfortable in the pocket. The first play resulting in a terrible sack. Trevor Lawrence was holding the ball a little bit too long. The O-line, I feel like it's a lot of guys out there in the O-line that are just boulders, but they don't know how to use their hands. Not a lot of technique, so they're getting pushed back a little bit. Trevor Lawrence did the one thing you cannot do as a quarterback in the NFL. He drifted a little bit left. There's only a couple of guys out there who can drift to their side, like Patrick Mahomes. However, Trevor Lawrence, hopefully he'll get there, but is not at that level just yet. So he ends up, drifting a little bit left, going straight into the rush, and he gets sacked for the first play. He did have some bright sides, including one great connection pass to Marvin Jones. And this was, let's see here, this was about a 35-yard on a third down to Marvin Jones. He was holding the ball so long. I mean, we're talking about in a regular NFL game against first strings, he probably would have been sacked at this point. However, it's a preseason and you got to give him reps. And speaking of reps, you didn't see a lot of it coming out of Trevor Lawrence. If you ask me, I know that Trevor Lawrence is probably going to be the starter of this team, but the second string quarterback matchup, it looks to be heating up. We had about an overall 4 quarterbacks played in this week 1 preseason game, and some of the names might have surprised you of who outperformed who. Gardner Minshew, who is supposed to be not a guarantee second string, but most likely going to be the second string quarterback for this Jacksonville Jaguars team. He went 4-8, 47 yards and an interception. Not too good, especially if you look at the guys he has to deal with. Lund, he went 8-13, 53 yards and a touchdown. And of course, C.J. Beathard. Put him in the fourth quarter, he will do something miraculous things for you. We're talking about 13-16 overall in pass attempts, 102 yards and a touchdown. So that's overall a really good performance from CJ. However, is it going to be enough to get that second string spot and maybe even stay on the roster? Who knows? They might probably put him more time in there with Ludden for that second preseason game, just in case if Gardner Minshew is not playing too much in the first half. But a lot to take away from that week 1 preseason game. Of course, Cleveland winning that one 23-13. We got shut out the first half of the game. Cleveland was not playing any starters at all on the offensive side as well as the defensive side. So we didn't see any Myles Garrett. We didn't see Baker Mayfield or any of those main guys going against, our ones on defense or on offense. So it's a little bit concerning when the third string guys of Cleveland are outperforming your first strings. However, this is just a week 1 preseason game. There's nothing too crazy about it. And this is a really young team that needs reps. So I was really shocked to see that Trevor Lawrence wasn't getting any reps. Travis Etienne wasn't getting really any reps at running back. He had about 13 snaps. One of them was rushing. The other ones, he was part of a passing offense. And he didn't even get the ball during that passing offense. I'm looking at Etienne's stats so far in the sense of, running the ball. 1 attempt, 2 yards. If you ask me, that just means that Travis Etienne, they still don't know what to do with him specifically just because Robinson is going to be the starter coming up for next year. And I feel like that's a guarantee. Robinson so far, he had 3 attempts and 13 yards overall in that preseason game in week 1. So they didn't even use him that much. They put in Carlos Hyde a little bit, 2 attempts, They had this one guy who, I do apologize if I do butcher the name, a gun ball, 8 attempts, 24 yards, which isn't bad. However, from what I'm seeing right here, not only is Robinson going to be the starter, but I feel like the run is not going to be really into the Urban Meyer game plan. I don't see the run going too crazy on this team. Unfortunately, they might try to include some of these running backs into wide receiver roles, but I just can't imagine the run being that too big for this team, which is kind of unfortunate for that. Robinson has been such a great running back, undrafted kid, getting 1,000 yards last year, and he might not show up. However, it's still only time will tell until we get to that week one of the regular season. But that's what I'm seeing right now from the offense from this week one preseason game. And then the defense, a lot to take away from this one. I mean, there were a couple of injuries, of course, from this preseason one game, which is, no team really wants it. However, they do add some, a little bit of drama right now in the Jacksonville Jaguars cornerback room. To give you an example, Trey Herndon, he was out of the game in the first half due to a knee injury. They're saying that it's about week to week. But what does this mean for the former Florida Gator? CJ Henderson, I mean, he shined out in this Jacksonville Jaguars team first week preseason game. He had not been there in training camp due to COVID and some personal off the field reasons. However, he was there for the team on the field. He had 2 pass breakups. I believe one of them was about a really long ball one, which was really impressive for him to do for the sense that he's not really 100% yet. I mean, he's been showing a little bit here and there that he's getting to game shape. I mean, to give you an example right here, here's a quote from Coach Urban Meyers saying, "I'm just glad that just liking the fact that he's getting back into game shape. He's been away from training camp due to COVID, as I said before, personal reasons off the field, and the fact that he's going back into game shape. He might be starting week one. Who knows? I mean, if Trey from getting injured ends up becoming, the second string just because of missing time and stuff like that, I don't feel like that's going to be an issue. I mean, the quarterback position for this defense so far in Jacksonville, I feel like it's solid, at least more solid than what the linebackers look like. And to give you what the linebackers look like so far, Miles Jack got confused every single time there was a play action. Damian Wilson confused, looked really weak on the coverage. The only bright side coming out of the linebacker room was probably Shaquille Quarterman, the guy out of the University of Miami. He actually is looking like what he should be looking like, a University of Miami linebacker. Now, this guy's been, going into training camp, working hard. A lot of the coaches are finding him very fit from what I'm hearing from camp. And he showed it on the field in his week one for the preseason. We're talking about a total of 3 tackles, and he wasn't out there for the entire game. Maybe not even more than a quarter, really. So 3 tackles in the snaps he took. He's noticeably getting more and more better by the day. I expect him to be starting week one. Now, as I said before, on the injuries of Trey Herndon, we have other injuries as well. Andrew Wingard, who's one of those guys fighting for a position on this team at safety. Unfortunately, he exited the game in the second half, and he never really got to return. But it was only a concussion, so hopefully he's able to play for this game in week 2. Only time will tell. Defensive tackle Daniel Ross, he ends up getting injured. Not that good of an injury at all. We're talking about the 4th quarter injury, his ankle. So he's going to basically miss the entire preseason, if not a couple of games afterwards. So they actually put him on injured reserve. So he's not going to be missing a lot of time, but he's not going to be seeing the field in any time. So those were some of the key points from the offense and the defense I took away from. Of course, Trevor Lawrence, he had, started over Minshew. So you expect Trevor Lawrence to probably get more reps going to the Saints game, hopefully staying there for the entire first quarter. Coach Urban Meyers, he was not concerned with the team, but he wasn't pleased with the tempo that they were going at. They were going really slow. He wants to fix that. He wants to be a more fast-paced offense. And he wants to, he wants to shine a little bit with his offense. He wants to put some things out there for the NFL to see this is the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I understand that coaches these days don't want to show too much of the playbook. But if you're doing one thing the right way your entire life, what makes you think that people are going to stop you at it? If they at least keep it going, I mean, in reality, it's still the same route tree for every single team. It's not like you have a specific play that you're going to lose every single game because of it. And I understand that Coach Meyers is a winning culture coach. He won about 85% of his overall college games as the head coach of Ohio State and Florida, which I believe is a record. I'm not too positive on that, but 85% is pretty damn impressive. If he even gets close to that in the NFL, I mean, that's past the record. I mean, that's past, I think, Don Shula or anybody in particular for a record. So I think that Meyers, I have a lot of faith in him. He's a really confident guy. He's more like a leader, more the CEO. He's not like a type of guy who came out of a coordinator position and straight into a head coaching job years afterwards of building up the ladder. He's just put straight in there, and he's been successful for that. So I expect Coach Urban to not only get his coordinators and his coaching staff on the same page, on tempo, but as well as bringing more things out there for the world can see Jacksonville, for they get reps for Trevor Lawrence, because you don't want to not give him any reps until week 1 of the regular season. That's a little bit too late. You don't want to do things too late. So with that being said, they do made some cuts after this game. Unfortunately, Tim Tebow did not make the team, which I'm not saying it's not a surprise. However, he was out there doing snaps with the offense, but never saw special teams. When you are a tight end and you're not even looking to get the starting role, because we all know Tim Tebow was there just to be on the roster, you have to be like a guy that's a Swiss Army knife. Tim Tebow, he has an arm. We know that. Tim Tebow, he's being a tight end. He's trying to receive. Tim Tebow, he's trying to block. He can't block at all. However, there's a lot of guys that can't block in the NFL who are tight ends. And that's just because blocking is the most difficult job in the NFL. Taking one man to another position with only force, it's the hardest job in the NFL. Maybe as hard as being a quarterback for a franchise team. Now, Tim Tebow, he did his best. However, it was obvious that this experiment was probably not going to succeed just because they didn't even give him a chance. I'm not saying they didn't have him out there on the field. They did have him out there on the field. But if you're Tim Tebow, you want to be on special teams. You want to show that, coach, I can do this for you. If you want me in offense, I'm there. Special teams, I'm here. Hell, put me in defense. Put me on the edge, maybe an edge rusher, whatever. Just give him something to do. And Tebow, he underperformed. I understand cutting him because in the first place, no offense to Tim Tebow, the, of course, Southeastern Conference legend. But, I mean, you just got to, you can't just go into the NFL at a different position. You just can't do that, especially a skills position like tight end. It's one of the most hardest positions out there, and I definitely understand this cut, but unfortunately, it does come with some pains, especially for the people in Jacksonville who really wanted to see him succeed. And speaking of wanting to see some people succeed, unfortunately, there was other cuts as well. Cornerback DJ Daniels was waived. 2 wide receivers were waived and cut off, most of them due to serve time with injuries and not being able to give a lot of playing time, unfortunately. Tim Jones being one of them, and Josh, I might butcher his name, I do apologize, but Josh Imorabebe. Now, he was also cut off, and defensive tackle Daniel Ross, who I mentioned before, his injury has put him on injury reserve, and this is a guy that, he was signed late last year, played the late end of regular season last year of those games, so he's kind of on that borderline of, he hasn't played a lot, why are we paying him? So hopefully he does get back healthy. But in overall, going into the Saints game, this is going to be another team with a quarterback scenario, just like the Jacksonville Jaguars, with their, of course, who's going to be the starter over there in New Orleans with Jameis Winston and Taysom Hill. So hopefully we do get some better results from the defense who go up against this team that are a little bit struggling at the quarterback position. I know Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston had a terrible first week of the preseason. However, they're going against a Ravens team who had some of the ones out there on defense. I'm not saying the ones for Jacksonville are not up to par, but they're going to be tested at least a little bit against Taysom Hill. And I'm expecting a good game from Jacksonville. I'm expecting to win that one at least by at least 2 touchdowns at least. We're talking about maybe a score around 24 to 6. I'm not expecting the Saints to get a single touchdown that game just because I'm not expecting Alvin Kamara to come into the game next time. And if he does, I'm not expecting to be a big result. So, in overall, I'm expecting this Jacksonville Jaguars team to look forward. I'm expecting them to change tempo offensively, be quicker, more reps for Trevor, and hopefully Coach Urban Meyers starts winning games. So I want to thank you again, guys, for being a part of this episode for the Jacksonville Jaguars preview. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. It means a lot to the channel. And if you have any comments of, what you want to see next, let me know. I'm all ears. So I want to thank you again for joining in for this Jacksonville Jaguars preview. And I'll see you guys in the next episode on the Floridian Sports Podcast. Thank you.